Groundbreaking radar reveals lost desert civilization. Researchers have uncovered evidence of a 5,000-year-old, previously unknown civilization buried beneath the al-Khali desert using AI and satellite tech. This is a major breakthrough in archaeology. Now let's deep dive into this AI
Okay,
podcast.
let's unpack this. Picture the al-Khali, the empty quarter. I mean, this isn't just any big desert, right? It's huge. One of the largest sand deserts on Earth.
Absolutely enormous. Just this forbidding expanse covering, what is it, over 250,000 square miles.
Yeah, swallowing up big chunks of Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, Yemen. And for ages, everyone just thought of it as, impassable, lifeless sand.
It's definitely earned that name, hasn't it? Seems so extreme. You'd just assume, well, nothing much could be under all that shifting sand.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
It turns out it's not empty, not at all. Far from it, actually. Beneath those dunes, wow, there's this incredible secret hidden basically in plain sight.
A major discovery is unfolding now. We're talking about solid evidence, actual remains of a civilization from 5,000 years ago.
5,000 years. And for so long, the idea of some advanced society out there, people thought it was just, I don't know, a myth, a legend.
Truly mythical, yeah. But now, they're finding it, buried deep under all that sand.
And the spark for actually finding it, the initial clue, came about in such a cool way.
Oh, yeah, the story with Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum.
Exactly. Back in 2002, he's the ruler of Dubai, flying over the area, and he spots these strange formations, dark patches that just didn't look natural from the air.
And that hunch led to investigations, didn't it?
Yeah.
Specifically at that site, Saruq al-Hadid.
Saruq al-Hadid. And it turned out to be this incredibly important Bronze Age site. Loads of evidence of ancient smelting copper, iron.
Yeah, serious metalworking. And what's becoming clearer is this place wasn't just some isolated outpost. It looks like a key part, maybe a major hub, of this much larger, complex civilization that was thriving thousands of years ago, before it all just vanished from the surface.
It immediately makes you think of that legend, doesn't it? Ubar.
Ubar, yeah. The Atlantis of the sands, this fabulously wealthy city just swallowed by the desert. T.E. Lawrence wrote about it, really romanticized the idea.
He did. And what's so amazing now is seeing that legend, which felt like pure fantasy, suddenly finding real roots in actual archaeological evidence from these finds.
It's incredible, but okay. Finding something buried under potentially hundreds of feet of sand in one of the most remote places imaginable.
Yeah.
How do you
even start?
Right. You can't just, bring in bulldozers and dig up the whole empty quarter. It's just too vast.
Impossible. And that right there is where modern technology had to step in.
Because trying to survey that kind of area on the ground, traditionally, it's incredibly hard, slow.
Yeah.
You barely scratch the surface.
You need a way to peer beneath the surface, map what's hidden down there, but without actually moving tons and tons of sand.
So for this deep dive, that's what we're going to get into. How cutting-edge science basically gave researchers X-ray vision, letting them see under the sand.
And what they started to uncover, it's just astonishing. Insights into this really intricate ancient society.
We'll look at the specific tech they used and the picture it's painting. Layers of history we thought were just gone forever. Okay, so that tech, what are we actually talking about? What lets you see through solid sand?
Well, the main tool they leaned on heavily is something called Synthetic Aperture Radar, SAR.
SAR, right.
Researchers, like a team from Khalifa University, Dr. Diana Francis was involved. Among others, they used SAR. Think of it sort of like sending radio waves down into the ground. And then listening very carefully to how those waves bounce back. Different things under the sand rock, metal, maybe old walls, they reflect radar differently.
Okay, so it builds up a kind of map of density differences or structures below?
Exactly. It allows you to create a picture, a subsurface map, without ever putting a shovel in the ground.
Kind of like taking an X-ray of the desert floor. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good analogy. And crucially, they didn't just use SAR. They combined that underground radar data with super high-resolution satellite images of the surface.
Layering the data.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then, dealing with all this massive amount of information, they used AI algorithms to process it, to find patterns.
Okay, so multiple technologies working together. SAR, satellites, AI analysis, making the invisible visible.
Yeah, that's the idea, this multi-layered approach plus the smart analysis.
Yeah.
That's what started revealing this hidden world.
Well, you put all that together. What did they actually see under the sand? What did this hidden world look like in the data?
Well, The scans and the analysis started showing these really clear signs of complex human activity.
Like what, specifically?
They could detect what looked like, well, the distinct signatures of metal structures, for one, evidence of buried architecture, suggesting pretty substantial buildings.
Wow, okay. Buildings under the dunes?
And ancient roadways, or at least established routes crossing the landscape, and even areas that showed up as dense midden deposits.
Midden deposits, so like ancient garbage dumps, full of discarded stuff.
Exactly, old crash heaps. And finding those, especially alongside what looked like buildings and planned routes, that's really critical evidence.
Why are middens so important?
Because they strongly indicate people lived there long term. It wasn't just nomads passing through. You get structures, roads, and refuse buildup that points towards settled communities.
Right, permanent or semi-permanent settlements.
Yeah. The SAR scans clearly mapped out multiple settlements, ones nobody knew were there before, and the routes connecting them. This whole pattern just shouts settled population, organized trade, significant infrastructure, things that take planning and staying power.
That remote sensing evidence sounds really convincing, but, how can they be sure that's what the radar blips actually mean? Is it just interpretation, or did they, check it on the ground?
Oh, absolutely. Verification is totally essential in archaeology. They didn't just take the radar's word for it.
Okay,
They cross-referenced the radar signals with existing archaeological records, wherever possible, from known sites nearby. And, crucially, they did targeted field surveys, ground truthing.
So picking specific spots indicated by the tech and actually digging.
Yes, exactly that. They'd find a strong signal on the SAR data that looked promising, maybe like a building foundation or an old road. Then ground teams would go to that exact spot for limited, careful excavations.
And did it pan out? Did they find what the radar suggested?
Apparently, the accuracy was incredibly high.
Yeah.
So much so that Dubai Culture, the local heritage authority, they've actually approved brand new excavation areas based specifically on where the radar says significant stuff is likely buried.
Wow. So the tech isn't just finding things, it's now literally guiding the archaeologists where to dig next.
Powerful validation,
Yeah.
right? But hang on. You mentioned this complex society thriving there 5,000 years ago. For that to even be possible, the environment must have been completely different from the empty quarter we know today. That place is harsh.
That is such a key piece of this whole incredible puzzle. You're absolutely right. That landscape, it wasn't always the hyper-arid desert we see now.
So it was wetter.
Significantly wetter. Between about 6,000 and 5,000 years ago, right around the time this civilization was flourishing, the climate in the Arabian Peninsula was much more humid. It got a lot more rain.
Rain. In the al-Khali. That's genuinely hard to picture.
It really is, thinking about it today. But back then, that extra rainfall supported shallow lakes, rivers, thriving ecosystems.
Well, in the empty quarter.
Lakes, vegetation, algae, diverse animal life. We have paleoclimate evidence for this. Those were conditions that could absolutely support sustained human settlement. People could farm, find water, build communities. A totally stark contrast to today's barren environment.
So the sand didn't just cover up this society later on. The actual climate changed dramatically around them, eventually making it too tough to sustain that way of life.
That climate shift is almost certainly a major factor in why the civilization declined or perhaps dispersed. And then, yes, the environment became arid, the sand started moving in, and that's what preserved what was left underneath for all these thousands of years. I mean, Bedouin tribes have shown incredible adaptation to the harsh desert for centuries, navigating it, surviving in it. But this evidence points to something different earlier, on a much more settled, perhaps even proto-urban culture that existed when the land itself offered far more resources.
It really does just completely rewrite the history we thought we knew about that whole region, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
From thinking of it as this vast, empty void, to suddenly seeing it as a historical treasure trove just waiting under the surface.
It fundamentally changes our whole perception. The empty quarter wasn't truly empty. It was just holding on to this rich, forgotten legacy, hiding it for millennia.
And the story of how we're finding it now is all about modern innovation, isn't it?
Definitely. That synthetic aperture radar, the high-res satellite views, the AI crunching the data, all driven by dedicated researchers, and then validated by those careful ground surveys approved by the heritage authorities.
These are the tools, the essential keys that are unlocking history in places that were just totally inaccessible before.
And it's important to remember, this isn't just about finding, old walls or potsherds. It's about understanding a complete interconnected society, infrastructure, trade networks. a whole way of life that existed thousands of years ago in an environment we can barely recognize today.
It really makes you stop and think. This amazing civilization was found by looking beneath a landscape that looks completely barren on the surface, but using totally new ways of seeing provided by technology.
It certainly does make you wonder.
Where else? Where else in the world might huge chapters of our history be hiding? Not necessarily miles underground, but maybe just hidden in plain sight. Just beneath the surface, waiting for the right combination of technology, persistence, and maybe a bit of curiosity to finally bring them to light.
Something to definitely ponder.
What does the discovery of this hidden city reveal about the capabilities and advancements of ancient Arabian civilizations? Comment it. Thanks.